Yeah, the first podcast was called "How We Met and What We Drank," but Christina Hoff Sommers. So she goes back. Also, she wrote a very seismic book called "Strolled Feminism," and it came out before mine did. But she was a professor at the time, and we had very similar observations. Hers was more on her training as a philosopher so she was sort of struggling with what she saw in academia, which was this feminist, political, ideological movement about women. And at the time, it also made women seem weaker, that part of like the Andrea Dworkins of that moment and Catherine McKinnon's was that women are so, on the one hand, we're supposed to be just like men. On the other hand, we are so vulnerable that if a man makes a joke at a water cooler, we're all just going to collapse and faint and we can't take care of ourselves. So it was a kind of assault on our own strength and power as individuals. So she was sort of writing from that view, and then I had explained my journalistic and personal view, and we met a couple of years later at an organization in DC that had been founded sort of to promote a more updated version of feminism that wasn't so political and ideological. So anyway, we both wrote about those things for years, and then I got sick of writing about women. Just seemed to be going nowhere. She moved on. She did some great work on boys and how boys now were getting shortchanged. And sort of the whole flip side, and we've seen as it coming through Me Too, that while there remain very important dynamics between men and women that were, came to the fore importantly during Me Too, but also, again, it was always the man's fault. It was always the man, that women were robbed of any sexual agency, that if something went wrong that they didn't like, and it in no way could be construed as assault, or maybe it was just gross, maybe it was just a bad date, suddenly, as we saw, people were getting canceled. And I found this fascinating because we both did. We both found that there was real truth at the core, that especially in certain industries, women were still putting up with a lot of crap that they shouldn't have to. But on the other hand, it was a resurfacing of this idea that robbed women of sexual agency and made men de facto predators. So that's when I got reinterested in the women's movement. And I was thinking then maybe I should re-up my book, this book idea that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. But then I looked at my daughters, and they're good readers. I mean, they read, but this is not the way you get through to that generation who you want to talk to. And at that time, gosh, it was only 3 years ago. And now I know everybody has a podcast. The DoorDash deliverer has a podcast, but at that time it hadn't quite crested to that level. And I said to Christina, I said, we should just take these conversations that we have over wine to a podcast. And this is how we're going to reach younger women. So that's how it started. And we start bringing in some of our friends and we know a lot of really interesting, accomplished women who don't fall into groupthink. So that's how it evolved. And that's what got us reinterested in, is sort of addressing what are really the same and eternal issues, but in a more contemporary form.